With their high-energy, harsh, and layered sound, Ministry established themselves in the realm of heavy and industrial music. The 1996 album Filth Pig divided fans with its dark, stripped-down sludge metal style. Even more fans were alienated with the experimental Dark Side of the Spoon in 1999. Warner Brothers dropped the band because of declining album sales, and drugs increased tension from within. In their darkest hour, Ministry had reason to continue when they were asked to appear in the movie AI, Artificial Intelligence. It was time for Ministry to show that there was still animosity in their veins. Bouncing back took overcoming some obstacles, however. After appearing in AI, Al Jorgensen suffered extreme depression. He had finally hit rock bottom after a decades-long drug addiction. Plus, he almost lost his arm to a spider bite while sleeping on his dealer's couch. Al called his longtime friend, Angelina Lucasen, to help him get clean, as she was previously a drug user. They would be married in September 2002. Paul Barker was depressed about the overall band crisis after the tour supporting Dark Side of the Spoon. On saxophone for the tour was Max Brody. Max was still creatively excited after the tour and wanted to make music with Paul. Together they wrote music they felt like making without the pressure of writing specifically for Ministry. A lot of what they came up with was noise-oriented and experimental. After performing this new material at a Halloween rave, the project was named Pink Anvil. Between making a song for AI and then working on Pink Anvil material, the gears began to turn for a new Ministry record. Al and Paul's wives also deserve credit for their encouragement. Ministry spent almost 2 grueling years in the studio for Dark Side of the Spoon. Because of this, they wanted to have fun recording again by shortening the songs, speeding up the tempos, and not spending as much time in the studio. Breaking new ground and experimenting wasn't as big of a priority as raw expression was. Al, Paul, and Max worked on material before going into the studio. Some ideas were thrown around during the Pink Anvil sessions. The album would be recorded and fleshed out at Sonic Ranch in Tornillo, Texas. They chose Sonic Ranch because it was in an isolated area where they could avoid distractions and focus on the album. It would also help keep Al clean. Recording from May into September of 2002 resulted in Animositisomina. Sanctuary Records released the album in February 2003. Al thought up the palindrome title, with animosity being spelled forwards and backwards without a Y or a second T. It's just animosity through and through. Also, with Al's love of referencing classic rock albums, the title is a nod to Grateful Dead's Oxomoxoa. On the cover is a dead sheep with religious symbols. The concept behind the title and the cover is that the human condition and religious strife are everlasting. Symbolically, it doesn't only apply to religion. It's a message against blindly following systems. Animositisomina is industrial metal that returns to the harsh volumes and speeds of pre-Filth Pig albums. There's room for feedback and noise, but the songs are mostly guitar-driven. Psychedelic elements have their place here like they do on the previous 2 albums. In addition to his usual scream, Al uses a melodic singing voice to go with the aggressive sound. Keyboards are on most of the tracks. The sound is abrasive, layered, and claustrophobic. Part of this is because the drums are distorted, and many other instruments sound crushed and overblown. Other times, samples are stacked, and bass parts are sometimes doubled with keyboards. To put it simply, this album is loud. While Al and Paul were the masterminds behind the music and production, they still had help. Max co-wrote several songs, played drums, and programmed for most of the album. A couple songs featured Louis Svitek's guitars and Ray Washam's drums, both edited from jams from sometime during the Dark Side era. Adam Grossman from Screw also plays guitar on the opening song. For the backup singers, Al's wife Angie sings on Lockbox, and a friend of his, Catherine Kinslow, sings on Impossible. Animosity is the opener. Right away it roars. It takes the chunkiness of Filth Pig and combines it with the speed and volume of Psalm 69. The song relies on minimal riffs, but still has the mechanical sounds and panning effects that make an industrial album. Al screaming animosity during the chorus is reminiscent to his post-verse screams in New World Order. Following that is Unsung. It has a jittery drumline and time signature, but simplifies things when called for. Al switches between his singing voice and growling. The keyboard is often constant in the background while the guitars do the busy work, complementing each other nicely. Track 3 is Pests. Lyrically, it takes on the probation Al faced after being busted for drug possession in the 90s. By slowing the tempo down, the guitars and drums have volume and impact. The chorus vocals echo from a distance, but everything else is frontal and slams hard for 5 minutes. It's just pure aggression shown with few riffs and an overblown sound. Up next is Lockbox. It was originally titled Dead Practice, and you can briefly hear it in the background of AI.
My name is David.
Impossible.
Lockbox starts with feedback, then the drums pound their way in, guitars follow, and finally growling ensues. A tense build-up to an explosive song. The toms are part of the main drum line, and though it sounds jagged, the instruments all work together. Broken marks the halfway point. This mechanical song about Texas strip clubs is made fun with Al's country voice. Its chorus sounds eerie with the vocal echoes and keyboards. Then a guitar solo shreds with a panning effect, and this metallic square dance continues. Then there's a cover of Magazine's The Light Pours Out of Me. Part of how Al and Paul became friends was that they both enjoyed British post-punk and noisy music. Magazine was one of the bands they liked. Ministry sometimes played this song live in the 1980s. While shopping for music one day, Al saw a bootleg live Ministry CD that included the song. The live version sounded so terrible to Al that they decided to record a proper version. This version of The Light Pours Out of Me has Al mimicking Howard Devoto's vocal style. Paul feels right at home, with the bass line being reminiscent of what he did while in the Blackouts. The song is metalized, and the keyboards add something new. It succeeds at being noisier and busier than the original. Shove is dark and atmospheric with plenty of reverb and feedback. Most of the song is written around a short, rattling bass line and a challenging drum beat. It's quiet for the verses but shows its teeth for the refrain. Al's mellowed voice gives this track a psychedelic experience.
Woke up confused in a face I didn't know. Then heard the hissing of an over your stab.
The eighth song is Impossible. It showcases the more industrial side of the album, with stereo panning effects, noise, and heavy bass galore. Fast, aggressive, and with a lot of the album's trademark fuzz and volume. This song's leanings towards metal could be seen as a precursor to the sound that would come after this album. Next to last is Stolen. Paul sings on this one. As expected from anything on the album, it's gritty, noisy, overblown, has all kinds of effects, and blasts weird sounds. Max even rips out the saxophone here. With Paul's sneering aggression and an unusually high level of distortion, it's a full-on attack on the senses. Finally, there's Leper, the most experimental song in this set. Al tried putting lyrics to it, but couldn't come up with anything to his liking. It was also near the end of the session at Sonic Ranch, so there just wasn't enough time to add vocals. Being instrumental makes Leper unsettling, however. While a slow bass line loops through most of the song, there's layered sonics and effects around it. One sound is Max tapping on a mirror with a razor blade. The band thought it would add something cool. On top of that, Al plays a toy keyboard that they found at a dollar store. This soundscape starts as a calm before the storm coming in around the 4-minute and 3-second mark. Then the guitars add a new riff, which plays for the rest of the song as the drums join in. Like the first half, layers are added on top of the repeating riff. Leper gracefully fades out, and Animositisomina comes to an end. Ministry would embark on the Fornicate tour to support the album. Once the tour was over, Paul Barker left Ministry after being a member for 17 years. Paul's father died, and it was initially announced that he wanted to spend more time with his family. Max was left to tinker with Pink Anvil's material mostly on his own. He would start a similar experimental project, Goober Smoochers, with Mike Scascia, who rejoined Ministry during the tour. Just like with Pink Anvil, a couple ideas from the project would make their way into Ministry songs for the next album. Al would form his own label, 13th Planet Records, and bring back Revolting Cocks without members from the classic lineup, save for Phildo Owens. Angie would become Al and Ministry's manager until their divorce in 2014. Houses of the Mole was the next Ministry release. It would be the first of 3 albums that are referred to as the Bush Trilogy. Why? Because most of the lyrics criticized George W. Bush and his administration, as he was president of the United States at the time. These albums went into a thrash metal direction. They appealed to metal audiences and some of Ministry's old fanbase that were alienated by the late 90s output. While Ministry gained new fans with these albums, they also lost fans that preferred the more unconventional styles and sounds of earlier albums. Many fans felt that Paul Barker's absence made the music less interesting. After Ministry, Paul would form a synth and effects company, Moleco Heavy Industry, with business partner Josh Hawley. He would also get involved with musical projects such as USSA, Pussifer, solo project Flowering Blight, and even reviving Lead into Gold. In 2007, news came out that Al was suing Paul for tortious interference. Paul had more control of the business side of things during his tenure in Ministry, and Al's dispute with him was over some alleged financial mishandling. The case was ultimately dismissed. For many years, neither of them had anything nice to say about each other in interviews. Al and Paul's falling out was so nasty that after recording Houses of the Mole, Al fired Max for still being friends with Paul. Eventually, Al and Paul reconciled, making a lot of Ministry fans happy. As for Animositisomina, it's Ministry being destructive. If the goal was to be raw and stick to what they knew, then they succeeded. Fans that were lost after Psalm 69 started coming back. The seeds for where Ministry would go next were planted.